Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Creator's Conscience. The conscience we'll be digging into now loves to piss off the alt-right, writes about comics, manga, and everything, and, looks exactly like the cartoon on his picture, which I can't exactly say for myself. I mean, that avatar of me looks like a lot skinnier than I really am. Probably a lot more handsome as well.
It looks close enough.
But please, welcome to the
enough.
show. I hope I pronounced your name right. Anthony Gramuglia?
Ooh, very close.
Gramuglia.
Gramuglia.
That sounds like a breakfast
Gramuglia.
cereal.
I've been told some friends have called me granola. I don't respond to that personally. I mean honestly, I'm not that delicious, but on that
are you
front.
healthy and part of a balanced diet?
Sure.
Yeah. You've heard the show before. You know what kind of ride you're in for.
I have a hunch. But the question is, do you know what kind of ride?
I mean, you're in a closet and I'm in my bedroom, so let's make this fucking happen.
This is very true. I mean, I didn't say I'm in my closet. It could be your closet.
I don't open my closet that much, actually, because I'm terrified something will come out. Maybe it's you. Who knows? We'll get some good surround sound in there.
Look, I'm probably not going to come out of your closet anytime soon. But I actually, the reason I'm in the closet is because it has all this fabric and stuff around it, so it's nice and sound absorbent. Not quite the same as say a sound recording booth, but it's close enough.
I mean, you're already one step ahead of me, and I run the fucking show. All I've got in here is some candles, a window, and that's it.
So it's more of a romantic front cover of a Harlequin novel than a recording.
Pretty much, yeah. Sometimes I'll bring guys back here, and then they'll see my Funko Pop collection and walk out the door.
Oh, what's that? That bulbous one. Is that a toy? Oh, it's Mysterio. Oh, okay. I guess.
I mean, I have. They probably don't like the Pennywise one that much. Not gonna lie.
That would be the main draw, honestly.
I mean, if it's Bill Skarsgård in general,
sure.
I mean, he's quite a handsome guy.
Oh, it's Skarsgård. I thought you were saying Tim Curry.
I mean, they're both handsome.
I have a way different
Tim Curry is handsome too, but I'm not a fan of that Pennywise. I get hate on the internet for that, but I don't like that version of it at all.
I feel they are very different.
Yeah, one's good, one's bad.
Skarsgård, Pennywise. I mean, it's a little more. I have a more nuanced than that. I think the thing is with the Pennywise, the Skarsgård's it. He is a cosmic entity who's trying to be human. There's a lot more vulnerability, but a lot more bizarreness to it. Whereas with Tim Curry, he's more like a human predator who's just having a good time being awful. But there's a lot more humanity to him, which I think makes him less scary.
True. I mean, I prefer the cosmic entity kind of it, because that's more like what's in the novel, which we'll be talking about today. We're not talking about the It novel, but we're talking about writing in general. Anthony, I don't know what I can call you. I feel weird if I call you Ant. I mean, have you ever heard of the guys Ant and Dec? The two popular British guys.
Actually, I'm not sure if I have. I'm going to do homework so I can tell you yes next time, but I don't know if you know those.
Funny enough, actually, considering what we're doing, Ant and Dec are two radio hosts, and I mean, my name's not Dec, but Anton Nolan doesn't have that much of a ring to it.
No. Ant?
No Ant. I mean, that just sounds like a clean house, no ants in it,
Oh, that's true. How about
Antland? Sounds like a theme park about Ant-Man, which let's not give Disney any more ideas.
Ooh, I was thinking more like a LAN party, like back in the old days where they didn't have internet connection, so they just tape people to the ceiling and give them computers to play Halo 2, and this weird network of cables linking computers together. Yeah, you've done LAN parties before, right?
Yeah, of course. Yeah. I mean, you probably have a bunch of readers who read your stuff that you want to pin to walls with computers as well. Would I be right there?
Sometimes I'll say that. I was in the middle recently. It's funny though. Before we decided to do this, but after we decided to do this, but before we recorded, I found out I was part of a weird Pepe Sylvia level conspiracy theory.
Oh, nonsense. I saw this tweet.
The Pepe
it was
Sylvia
insane.
Gag. it, yeah, the Pepe Sylvia gag. In case you, if you're listening, don't know, you've probably seen that meme from It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, where like Charlie Day's like has all the mail pasted on the walls and the strings leading from one thing to the next. That's what I'm talking about. It was like a weird cabal of like journalists and voice actors and Twitter users and cosplayers who apparently are conspiring against the man. And it's all really goofy. Specifically the Vic Mignogna nonsense. But no, but it's just my name was listed there, and I was like, oh, cool. I am a quote unquote.
I've met Vic Mignogna. He's a prick.
Yeah.
Mind you,
I've never met him. I've never met him personally, but I know people who have known him.
There are a few celebrities I've met who have turned out to be absolute dickweeds. So, I mean, I could probably tell you that after we finish recording because I don't want them like storming my show. Yeah,
suing you? No, it's all good. No, I've met a few people who are pricks. I met a lot of nice guys. I've met some people who are pretty chill. But what are you gonna do? Unfortunately, it's life. There's a lot of assholes. A lot of cool people, but a lot of assholes.
Thankfully for me, you're one of the cool people. I mean, how long have we been talking online now? I think like a year or so.
Probably a little more than that. I've been on Twitter since like 2012 or something like that, but I didn't really start to use Twitter until, sadly enough, around the Trump election. Honestly, that's when I really. Which is because you had to know.
Actually, that's when I started using it more too, but it wasn't because of the Trump election. I mean, because I'm British, I had to pay attention to Brexit, and we all know how that's ended.
Yeah, well, another case of people. I don't want to get political on this one because knowing my work, I get political.
Oh, I know. I mean, literally any time there's like a big news thing or like an opinion piece thing on it, within like I think maybe half an hour or so, I see an article from you offering your take on it.
I don't know about an article, sometimes just a tweet, but there's been some. Plus, sometimes what happens is I will have written. This is going to give you a little insight behind the curtain with how most content is created on entertainment sites, what have you. But typically speaking, with editorials and all that kind of stuff, usually they're published shortly after the news breaks. But they're written after the news breaks. But sometimes it can take a little while to make sure all the facts are correct, all the information is correct, because a lot can be inaccurate with entertainment news. And it's very important not to relay your opinion as though it's the truth, but to frame it as the opinion, as an opinion. A good example of this would be when this is a minor article. This wasn't one that I like. That was went too crazy. But I wrote an article about the Game of Thrones writers when they dropped out of doing Star Wars, and a lot of my writing for it was a little hyperbolic, and in hindsight, it was not good enough for my standards. It was below my standards, and my editor was like, "Hey, listen, Ant, this is not gonna. You can't publish this, not as it is right now. A little, you need to, reread it, look it over, make sure you're not like saying you're, because a lot of people don't. A lot of people agree it was not very. Game of Thrones' final season was sloppy.
I didn't even watch it. I was bored of all the discourse of it, so I'm like, you know what? Fuck this. If I want something to make me feel all nihilistic, I'll turn on the fucking news.
The thing is, though, like I typically, honestly, with fantasy in general, I like nihilistic, dark stuff. Like I love Berserk, I love Game of Thrones, I love, the Dark Company books. It was Black Company, like Glenn Cook. I like those kinds of dark stories. I like it when it's, But the problem for me isn't the nihilism or the darkness, because I also love lighthearted stuff too. I just like good stories. That's the problem. I like good stories with characters that make that logically flow. Not logically, that's the wrong word. But you can see the development organically move from point A to point B to point C.
Yeah, it feels like it's naturally flowing as opposed to like, this is where I want it to go. This is why it has to do this. Whereas like, I feel a lot of writers tend to overthink their scripts a lot and it ends up being for the worst.
I agree. One thing that I think both George R. R. Martin and Stephen King do this, that I think is really good until you get to the ending, is they write by the seat of their pants. They have characters make decisions, and then logically the next step is, well, what happens next? What's the fallout of this choice? And in Game of Thrones, this leads to a lot of twists and turns, not because necessarily it's a well-plotted twist, but because the twist came about inevitably. Because every action logically follows the action that spawned it. It flows from, if say, when Ned Stark walks up to Cersei and goes all like, "Hey, listen, I'm going to tell everyone that you are an incest person and you're bad.
I will shame you."
Logically, exactly. Logically, the next step is, yeah, we're gonna arrest you and banish you. But then what's the next step from that? Well, the new king gets to decide. Well, who's the new king? Use that logical flow of events. It just flows from point A to point B. Oh, what happens next? Ned Stark gets executed. What happens next? People are angry. What happens next? They fight. Everything kind of leads to the next event very logically and very organically. And that's really good storytelling, I think. That makes storytelling so fascinating when it's just, when you can see the pieces falling into place, not because it's like some predestined, rearranged concept. Whereas with Game of Thrones Season 8, you get this sense of like, okay, we have to fight now. Why? Because we have to fight now. There's another fight now. Okay, what happens next? Well, we have to fight now.
More and more and more and more.
Oh, I have to go and burn the city down.
Also, I have to do this with my shirt off.
That's the thing also with Game of Thrones. It was very exploitative. It had a very the series as a television series had a very when you look into the interviews and the one panel they ran that was very very infamously tweeted about after it occurred. I think it was like in the Austin Film Festival of some kind. Maybe it was North by Northwest, but I'm not sure what festival it was. But where the two writers D&D, they were talking about their approaches when they started writing the show, and it's like, we had no idea what we were doing. Basically, we just kind of made it all up as we went along. We didn't even know what we were doing while making the show. We just kind of made up new techniques and new concepts just as we went. There was no real plan. We don't know how George R. R. Martin sold his idea to us. Stuff like that. And you're kind of reading this, and you're like, well, you had no idea what you were doing, and it shows.
Yeah, I get that. Because you're on such a tight deadline, but that's kind of the philosophy I have with writing as well. Like, I kind of just, I let things flow because I need to. I usually start with like a concept, like an idea. Like for Moonflower, I have the idea of, what would happen if a fictional character found out they were fictional. Oh, they'd probably be really pissed off, and everything kind of flowed out of that. But to make it throw naturally, like, I wanted this to be a really emotional story, so you need those scenes where it's like, oh, the little girl who looks up to her, they have to have bonding moments, they have to feel like friends. That way, when those like inevitable plot points hit, they really hit you emotionally. So I feel like the right mix of doing that kind of storytelling is writing organically, so you figure out who the characters are, and also knowing where the plot points have to hit so that when they do come, it hits you with the best punch possible.
Exactly. And I do agree with you on that one. I feel sometimes with characters also, I usually outline. And upon outlining, I write it all down as it flows out. I make stuff up as I go along. I have a lot of ideas that I just toss out in the middle of writing. I'll plan them out. I'm like, I get to the scene, I'm writing it. I'm like, this isn't going to work. There's no reason a fight scene will happen here. There's no reason he'll say I'm sorry here, or she'll, confess her love here. So I'm not going to do that anymore. And then I just adjust the outline from there. When writing a story and writing fiction, when writing articles, it's very structured. You have to have a sense of complete structure, because structure is key, I think. Structure in everything is key. Even the lack of structure is an element. How is it lack structure? What structure is it lacking? When you look at a painting, you may see, say, Cubism from Picasso, but Picasso's Cubism only came about after he did it perfect. He did like photorealistic art first. Then he was like, let's fuck with this. You may have to censor that out. I'm very sorry.
I don't censor anything on this show. Literally, you fuck, shit, everything. Like,
Good. Okay, cool. That narrows it down. So Picasso makes his photorealistic art, and he's like, okay, how can I ruin it? And that ruination becomes art itself, or that deconstruction, maybe not ruination. Though an argument can be made that ruins are art. I don't know. Maybe I'm just going to deconstruction.
I get what you mean. It's like destruction's a form of creation, kind of thing.
Like some of my favorite stories are stories that are absolute train wrecks, and I love coming back to them because they're train wrecks. Because you notice the things that work in stories when they're not there. For example, when you watch a movie, do you ever consider film editing?
A lot
really
more recently, actually. Now that I make videos.
Exactly, right? It's only when you've done it that you notice how it is done. Because until you've done that, you don't think, okay, how does this scene transition from this scene? How does this shot, when intercut with this other shot, make sense? I was just watching the other night, maybe it was even last night, I forget how recently it was, because that's how my life is a mess in that sense. Die Hard. And there's this great sequence at the end of Die Hard where, Bruce Willis is coming up the building, they're going to blow up the roof, and they intercut between three moments. And they intercut between Bruce Willis on the roof trying to get all the hostages to safety, the FBI coming in with, like, the guns ready to shoot the terrorists, but knowing that, you're going to shoot Bruce Willis instead, and Hans Gruber, played by Alan Rickman, realizing what's happening and about to blow up the roof anyway. And it's such a great moment because they intercut between these three separate scenes seamlessly. And it builds tension upon each element. Like each element adds something and adds something and adds something, despite the fact that ultimately none of the characters in these three separate scenes are interacting at all directly. But they're interacting indirectly. Like their actions affect the other two. And that's so clever. That's tension right there. And it's built from just editing.
I didn't realize I was talking to fucking Michael Tucker on this show, really.
No, I'm just babbling. I'm just babbling.
Dude, how have you not started a fucking video essay channel?
Oh.
You did once. And
yes, when I was 16.
Great. So I bet you thought Fight Club was a masterpiece back then.
Oh god, no. Actually, it is actually really embarrassing. I didn't see Fight Club until I was like 18. But I had every element of it spoiled for me because
the internet.
No one in my school would shut up about Fight Club.
Jesus, where do you go to school? Like I'd be afraid of that.
New Jersey.
Okay, Jersey. That makes sense.
No. Yeah, people loved Fight Club. One of my lifelong friends, who I'm still very, very close with, he's a good dude. His favorite movie was Fight Club in high school. I haven't asked him about it recently. I'm sure if I talked to him about it now, he's like, oh yeah, Fight Club's great. But back then, a lot of people, he would quote Fight Club, reference Fight Club. And I'm like, okay, that's cool. I guess I have to watch it sometime. And then I'd watch Old Boy instead.
Better movie, if you ask me, honestly.
It's Old Boy's amazing. Old Boy's great. I don't find myself revisiting it as often as, say, like Pan's Labyrinth or The Godfather or even The Exorcist, but Old Boy's great. There's a lot of... That's the funny thing with me, and I don't want to take over your channel by talking
Dude,
nonstop.
You're the guest. You can take over as
much
as you like.
This is fair, but if I'm talking too much, just let me know. One thing I find very interesting, especially online, and this is going to tie in a few different things together, so bear with me for a second.
I'll get my tea ready. Hold on.
Nah, get the tea ready. We'll pour some... I have to get tea after this to stop my throat from being scratched up from talking.
I actually just finished that, so we'll pretend it's...
Oh, no, yeah. You get the feeling. You get the feeling right there. One thing that's interesting is when I'm online and talking to members of, let's say, the alt-right. The alt-right, for some reason, they just hate me. I'm not entirely sure why. Maybe it said something mean about their mom one day. I'm not sure what happened, but they can't stand me. One thing they'll call me a lot, their go-to insult is, SJW. Oh, you're such a social justice warrior. Oh, I bet you can't handle anything. You want to censor everything. Meanwhile, I've freaking watched like Legend of the Overfiend when I was like 14, 15. I've watched every like sleazy, disgusting 70s and 80s exploitation film, and for the most part had fun with them. Even if I know they're like trash and offensive, they're still, to an extent, entertaining.
Yeah.
You know, in that kind of really sick
As
kind
you'll
of
find
way.
out later this month, I'm a big James Bond fan, and that's got a lot of problematic shit in it, but I
yeah.
still enjoy those movies for other reasons.
Oh yeah, exactly. Because here's the thing, you can love something while still addressing its problems.
I mean, that's part of how you grow. I mean, if you
I love.
ignore problems, like, how are you supposed to learn anything from it? At least that's how I view stories.
Exactly. No, I agree. And you can still love the thing, even if you would realize, hey, this has a ton of problems. You know, a good example of this would be, I was listening to another podcast recently where they were talking about The Exorcist. And The Exorcist is one of my favorite movies. I think
It's great.
Brilliant. It's amazing. But they brought up a point I hadn't thought of before that was actually really, really clever. And, you know, mind you, they even in the podcast like, this movie is still amazing, it's great, but the exorcism scene itself in the second half of the film is all about. Okay, so the movie, if you haven't seen The Exorcist, you have, but for viewers who have not, in The Exorcist, Reagan is this 12-year-old girl. She's the daughter of this actress who's played by Ellen Burstyn. I forget the character's name, but Reagan, she's possessed by the devil. And for the first half of the movie, it mainly focuses on the mom who's like trying to figure out what's going on with her daughter. Like, she's going to doctors, she's going to psychologists, she's getting spinal taps for her, and everyone's like, I don't know what's going on. She keeps coming up negative on all these tests. We don't know what's happening. And the fear is essentially, hey, you're a mother, and you have no idea what is going on with your daughter. And it's genuinely, really unsettling. But the whole while, we also keep coming back to this other character named Father Karras. And Karras' whole thing is he's a priest. He's actually a psychologist for priests. He's a Jesuit. And his mother has just gotten sick and died in a really disturbing, sad kind of way. And the whole movie from there, from his perspective, is a crisis of his faith. The second half of the film is where the exorcism really starts to, like all the typical stuff you expect, you know, like your mother sucks cocks in hell, and she masturbates with the cross, and she pukes up pea soup, and her head starts spinning around, like all the
iconic, like, Linda Blair
stuff.
shit, yeah.
Oh, the great Linda Blair moments. Oh man, she served some award for that. I think she got a Golden Globe, I'm not sure. Anyway, so the movie no longer is about the mother. It's all about how this girl's possession affects the character development of Father Karras, the male character, who up until this point had no connection with Reagan. And it's one of those problematic elements where those who are suffering directly suffer in service of another character's development and growth, which is one of those nuanced topics. It's a nuanced critique because, and it's one of those frustrating ones where you're like, on one hand, you're like, yeah, but the characters still grow. The characters, you know, Reagan and her mom still develop as characters during this period of time. But it's also the plot is focused on another character's growth through their suffering. And it's one of those complicated kind of critiques where you're like, you grapple with it and you're not really sure if you agree with it or not, but you see where they're coming from. Where you see that the suffering of these characters doesn't affect their character as much as it affects the men around them. And the fact that they're women and all the female, it's a nuanced critique. I've been kind of going back and forth on it since hearing that. I'm like, do I agree with that? Do I see where the critique's coming from? And I kind of go back and forth. Like, I can see where some of the elements are. I disagree with other parts of it. But that's the thing with the discussion around media. You know, you hear this critique. You don't have to agree with it, but you have to think about it. And you kind of go, okay. You weigh it in your head. It doesn't make the movie any less amazing, though.
No, it doesn't. And it's like, it reminds me of that sort of idea, like some people who just watch movies passively. Like, they'll turn it on, they'll watch it, and they won't think about it again until maybe they want to watch it some other time. And then you get people like you, and this is also how I do it, who sort of like to actively participate with what a movie's trying to tell you, and like what a book's trying to tell you. And what I always find interesting is like, especially when I'm reading like stories from authors who we're all friends with, it feels almost like I'm reading their perspective on stuff, and I'm getting like what their flavor of this experience is, and that's why I go and seek out different ones. But especially with looking back at old movies, like you mentioned The Exorcist already, but you know, you can look. It goes back to even like the 2000s. Like, there's a lot of weird stuff in there that, like, yeah, maybe we weren't as aware of this as we are now, or we didn't know how to talk about it sensitively, or I don't know, fucking movie studio execs or whatever. And it comes to this like really interesting critique where, like, okay, even if you disagree with what a movie said or what it's done, you can still kind of learn from it in a way. I mean, that's why I started stories as lessons, because it's not only what you're learning as a writer, you're also learning like differing views that sort of challenge your own thing. Like, what's the point of having an opinion on something if it isn't going to be challenged? I mean, that's always what I say.
Exactly.
And it being challenged is not a bad thing. Like, if you don't always have to agree with somebody else's opinion. Like, I don't agree with every creator I watch or what every author says, but I take that critique on. I think about what my own views on it are, and then they can grow from it while still keeping true to who I am. And that's what I think a lot of people miss. And when, especially because I know you talk about like portrayals of stuff that's from ages ago, and you get those people coming on like, "Oh, dude, just shut up and turn your brain off and enjoy it. Shut up."
Oh my god.
I'm like,
yeah.
What's the point of turning your brain off whilst watching a movie? You might as well just be watching the sunset if you're going to do that.
Well, the thing is, even that takes more stimulation, honestly. Having no brain cell. You still need to have your eyes function, right? Your ears have to function. The breeze is nice. You can feel the sensation and lose yourself to meditation.
This is what the first three
even when
chapters
you
of what you sent me sound like.
Basically.
Yeah, I learned a lot about bartending through. I mean, I was a bartender a couple of years ago, but you just reminded me of it.
Oh, nice. I have a few friends who have bartended over the years, so I've never bartended myself, though I've wanted to. Kind of wish fulfillment in my own writing right there. It seems like fun, when you're not dealing with weirdos, but even that might be fun.
Dude, I work
itself.
in Scottish bars. Who do you think I deal with?
This is very fair. That's a good point.
Scottish bars during a football game at happy hour. It's not the shift you want to be working.
Oh my god, that's the worst. You see, here's the thing I found really interesting with my manuscript I sent you specifically. My idea behind it. Would you like to describe? Actually, I want to hear you describe it. How would you describe it?
Well, when I
can explain
I
it
read
myself
the first three
for everybody.
chapters because I was essentially like, okay, I'm gonna read this as if I'm an agent wanting to take it on. What I got from it was very sort of twisted, like Death Note-y anime kind of elements mixed with this kind of historical. I told this to you before we started, like Boardwalk Empire. Like, you're exploring a world that's kind of a time capsule, but it also feels a little bit modern with this whole world building thing you've got around how dragoons, I think that's how you pronounce them, dragoons, work.
Yeah, dragoons,
and it's like there's some weird connection between alcohol and these dragoons and what the kind of things they consume are. I don't know if this is going to be like a whole kind of message on alcoholism, but I can sort of tell what your taste in media is from it. Like, it seems like you definitely watch a lot of exaggerated kind of media, like anime and comics and that kind of stuff. And this feels like a complete.
There's nothing fun about that, though. Yeah. With this work, I entirely went for pulpiness. I just dove head on in, because there's something so fun about a pulpy, fun story. Like, with realism, that's great. I love realistic work, but I can't write.
I can't either.
I can't remain in that headspace.
There's got to be some weird genre thing in there for me to get interested.
Yeah, because with real life, I've attempted. When I was in various classes, I would attempt to write a straight story. So to speak.
I remember those days.
Not that kind of straight story, but a straightforward story, I should say. A story where every element kind of it's down to earth, it's realistic, but every time I'd start writing it, there'd be a few murders or two along the way.
Oh God. I'm gonna guess in your comic collection you've got like Fables and Sandman and all that shit in there as well.
Oh, it's a lot. I've had to right in this closet, I'm sure I have some, but most of it's on my bookshelf. I mainly collect trades now because the floppies are a little expensive. It gets pricey, collecting week to week for
I never
floppies.
buy
But
single issues anymore. It's always trades.
I have friends who the thing that's also good about my job is I get to read them before that. Sometimes they come out to write about them. So get review copies. It's what you gotta do. You gotta get paid to do what you enjoy.
Oh God.
They pay you to read it. It's not the other way around.
I mean, I probably would have enjoyed J.J. Abrams' kid's Spider-Man a lot more if I'd been paid to suffer through it.
No, you wouldn't have. No, you wouldn't have. That was.
I mean, I'm sure he's a nice kid, but that wasn't for me.
Oh, I'm sure he's great, but here's the thing: you have to divide when the term separate the artist from the art, it doesn't just apply to your Roman Polanski's or your Woody Allen's. It also applies to people who are just nice people, but their writing is yeah. You have to be fair. You can't be nice to someone's work because you like the person themselves. And that's a difficult lesson, I think, for a lot of people, especially writers. You need to be not mean, but firm. Like, that's a big thing. Because if they are serious about writing, you need to tell them what they can improve upon. Because even if it sucks to hear at that moment, they have to know. Otherwise, they're gonna not grow and not get better. Like even with the manuscript you're reading right now, with the one I sent you, it's a fourth draft, and there were many critiques and many changes that were made because, the people who first read it were like, "Listen, I'm not sure this works. I'm not sure I'm feeling this. What are you doing with this sentence? What's going on here? What's up with this character? I don't get it." And even if they overall liked it or really enjoyed it, I think a lot of people really liked where it went. From what I've read, from what I've seen so far, it's not ready yet because it has a good foundation, it has a good core. There's elements that they like, but you gotta fix so many elements before it's ready for consumption. Because you only get one chance to really leave an impression.
Yeah, I totally get that.
If you squander it. Yeah, and if you squander it, that's it. You need that. You need to land on a good foot forward.
Yeah, I mean.
Yeah, I mean, that's my point.
Have you had sort of like revisions given to you by agents?
Not yet. I've been sending this out to agents. I had a couple full requests out. I've only been sending this one out fairly recently. I just started the querying for this one.
Because
I spent more time on it.
Because I got a revised resubmit for Moonflower from an agent who I won't name, but who I've been kind of going back and forth with for a couple years now. And honestly, when I first heard her critiques on it, you get that kind of, oh shit, I feel like I've done something wrong, I sucked, I hate this, everything, no one's gonna like it. But then as you give it time to settle, like it kind of starts to make sense in your mind, kind of like, oh yeah, I feel like I could do this better with this idea, I could make this part a lot better than it is, I could take this part out. Because originally I had Moonflower written as this like portal fantasy, kid goes to another world, has magic, and brings her favorite character to life kind of shit. And like that was fine, but she told me like, I like the foundation of this, but what if you actually set it in her world, like they all came to London and it becomes this kind of road trip thing. And then immediately I'm thinking like, this can be more than what it is now. It could be this sort of story of a kid who's always wanted to feel free, like the heroes she reads about, so she goes on this little adventure, but through that she discovers the person who she looked up to isn't as great as she like expected, which I've got personal experience with. I put a lot of that into it. But then how do you kind of grow from that? Like how do you find the hero within yourself? It should be about that what counts. You shouldn't be living through somebody else.
Exactly. And that's more powerful, I think. When you first described your story, the first thing I thought of was I think I've told you this before, or mentioned it in reference. I think I've told you this before.
I think you compared it to an anime,
the
didn't
manga.
you? Yeah.
Yes, an anime manga. I prefer the manga personally because but I'll get into a second. The manga Fushigi Yuki. It's a 90s manga anime where these two girls, they're like 14, and they find this book in the back of the library, and the book turns out to be a portal to another reality. And the main character is one of the two girls, and she falls in love with the first guy she meets. Roughly. It's a fun fantasy adventure story. It has moments where you're like, why would you write this? There are a lot of, especially in regards to the queer coding in this series.
Well, it's the 90s. That's what I expect.
But it came out at the same time that Sailor Moon was coming out, which had great representation in that sense. And it stinks because it's another problematic fave where it is goofy. It has aged awkwardly, but it's a delight in some senses. And in other senses, it's uncomfortable. But the bones of the plot, I thought, this sounds a lot like your story, different, going to a fantasy world. And there's, of course, the existential dread where it's like, wait, I came out of a book. What's happening? Then another character who's just like, comes out of the book and they're like, oh, hey, you're a book character. You're not real. And it's like, okay. It's cool, I guess.
Oh, I mean, with mine, it's like, it makes her question her entire existence. Like, if I was written, why did the author, who, by the way, is the main character's dad, why did he give me such a fucking terrible life?
Yeah, that's that actually makes me think of the Will Ferrell movie.
Which Will Ferrell movie?
Stranger Than Fiction.
I've been told to watch that. That's
yeah, that's a good one.
I got told actually by the agent to check out the movie Life Size as well, where it's like it's kind of a similar premise, but they bring a doll to life, and it's Tyra Banks and Lindsay Lohan. I'm like, I haven't seen it yet, but it also sounds kind of similar.
I don't think I've seen that before. I was trying to think if I've seen that. Like, I was like, have I seen that? I don't think I've seen Life Sized. I add that to my list too.
I mean, it looks just sort of like a cheesy sort of early 2000s Disney Channel movie.
Yeah, but sometimes cheesy is good.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of good ideas have come from really cheesy places.
It's Sam Raimi Spider-Man, Patty Jenkins Wonder Woman. They're all, you could call them cheesy. I prefer to think of them as sincere.
When I think of great cheese, honestly, of all the films I can think of, more than Sam Raimi's Spider-Man, of all the Sam Raimi works, I would say the one Sam Raimi work I always come back to consistently is Army of Darkness.
My favorite Evil Dead movie.
Actually, let me rephrase that. There's two Sam Raimi movies I come back to all the time. Army of Darkness and A Simple Plan.
I've not seen Simple Plan. I've seen Army of Darkness, though.
Yeah, that's the thing. Not many people have seen Simple Plan because it's a grounded crime. I want to say thriller. It's more of a crime drama, and it is what I go back to all the time whenever I have issues with structure. The screenplay for A Simple Plan is one of the most well-written, tightly written screenplays I've seen in really any movie in a while. It's just brilliant. It's so brilliant. If you want a lesson on how to properly write a story where events lead from event to event to event and the conflict always shifts, watch A Simple Plan. It is brilliant.
I'll put that on a list. And
nah, it's great. That's a hard A. If I'm giving a movie's letter grades, it's a hard A for me.
I'll definitely keep an eye out for that one. And I mean, since this show's kind of all about getting into you, I think we've talked a lot about what you look for in stories and what your kind of approach is. It's very similar to mine, but I sort of want to know, do you ever do the thing where it's like, I want to put myself into this story, or give your younger self something that would have helped them at that age? Because that's kind of where I was coming from with Moonflower, because when I was a kid, I was bullied a lot. I sort of looked to fictional people as sort of my friends, and then I came up with this, trying to explore it and show, no, it shouldn't be about, you living through fiction or just living your life by that. It should be about finding happiness within yourself. Have you ever done that with your own kind of stories, put a personal struggle of yours in?
Yes and no. It's a little complicated to respond to that one because I'm going to require a couple answers. To the question, have I put myself into a story as I am? No, never. Even characters who I tried to be self-inserts are nothing like who I am. But that being said, I have taken life experience or perspectives of mine, taken them out of context, and then built upon those. What I mean by that is this. A lot of my characters are aspects of how I either have seen the world in some way or experiences I've had that I then kind of just spin. I build, and I kind of elaborate in different directions. I come up with a concept or an idea, and then I drop it into a new scenario. And I go, okay, I kind of want to get to this vague point B. How do I get there? How do I start? And from there, I just kind of brainstorm until they kind of come together. What I find a lot with my writing is I take elements of myself and mix them with elements outside myself. Because very often, when I'm writing a character, well, let me go back even further than that. Usually, I will come up with a concept before the characters, because I want to make sure they fit into this world. I don't necessarily want the world to fit around them. I want them to fit within the world that I then spin around. So, for example, to give you an idea, with the character in my book of David. David is a baker. He's a soft boy in multiple senses of the word. He's very emotionally soft. He's a Jewish baker in the 1930s. I'm not Jewish.
Yeah, he reminded me a lot of Dan Fogler's character from Fantastic Beasts.
I can see that. I can see that definitely. For me, the main inspirations behind writing him was initially, and I feel like, actually, maybe he wasn't. Maybe to an extent he was an inspiration. Now I think about it. Maybe Fantastic Beasts was influencing me. Sometimes I won't even realize what my influences are until I finish writing it.
Yeah,
you know?
I get that.
Like I'll be drawing from this well the whole time. Like, oh, what's this well? This common idea. Keep coming back to it. It's really interesting. And then months later, I'm like, oh, it was that.
That happened to me once with the story in high school. Like the first script I wrote, I wanted a really dark, grounded superhero story with an urban kid doing parkour. Then as I finished it, I was like, holy shit, I just wrote Chronicle.
I'm sure Max Landis would sue you for that one, as he tries all the time to sue everyone. But with my idea, it was honestly kind of going more for the vulnerability angle of it. I was kind of wanting to make a vulnerable person who I was drawing upon my frustration with job applications. Right. Trying to apply to a job, you get no response. You apply to 100 jobs, you get no response. That root frustration is so human and so relatable. I kind of took that and I'm like, okay, how do I restructure it? What if it's not just a job? What if it's his entire career? And what if it's not just his career, it's that he's doing it on his own. He's taking the next step. He's doing more than what I'm doing right now. He's going out there and making baked goods, running a bakery on his own. What if no one cares? What if that feeling that when you send an application out, no one's looking at it? What if we extrapolated that to the whole city, to the whole world? And then for fun, let's just mess with his life even more as we go on.
And that's similar to like what a lot of authors feel when they're sending their books out into the world. Like, what if nobody cares to read it?
Oh yeah.
What if I do all this work and I get this agent and I do all this and then the sales are terrible? So I'd say that's very relatable.
Oh yeah, it's a human concern. That's one of the reasons why I try not to go for myself as the priority character either, because I realize that my personal experience is so specific that it's not possible for everyone to relate to it. And you really shouldn't write stuff to be relatable to everyone. It's just it's impossible. You'll never connect to every person.
Yeah, and there's a few people who you don't want to connect to, as you often piss off online.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, yeah, exactly. It's better to appeal to a niche than everyone. So what I go for is more of a general sensation, more of a general life experience. And then I kind of say, okay, how can I run my other characters parallel to this in some way? Or have them be foils, or have them be conflicting that. The first character I wrote was David for the story. It was basically centered around him. And what's funny is he's not the protagonist of the story. But the story became foundationed around him, so to speak. It became built around him, even though he was no longer the protagonist by the time I finished writing.
And then that kind of changed your perspective on the whole thing, really?
Kind of, but also no. It changed it in that I realized there were other factors to consider, because the story organically grew. Like I was saying before about organically growing the narrative organically grew beyond the initial concept I had for it. But that initial concept was still a nugget inside of it. So that concept never changed. That never went away. That was a constant throughout the story. But the layers on top of it were changed.
Yeah. It was like the flour to your proverbial cake, really.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. It became an element that was built upon, but not necessarily the only element. And as you kind of develop your idea, you have to come up with more elements, and you just add them all together. You make a good, big cake filled with chips and your milk and your flours and your eggs and all that good bullshit. And what you come up with is something that tastes great, but it does not taste like any one of the sums of its parts.
Yeah, I mean, if you just started from like doing one concept and didn't develop upon that, you'd literally just be eating a bag of flour.
Yeah, which I know people who like that in elementary school.
Yeah, I mean, it's a nice, it's a palate cleanser for the paste they're eating.
Yeah, I have no idea why they'd eat it. I have questions about many things dating back from that period of time. Like when they give you ice cream and they give you that like wooden spoon thing because they're too cheap to give you plastic and want to avoid harming the environment. Then you bite into it, and then the kids would bite into it and snap it, and they get splinters up their lips. Why would they do that? Why would they realize that kids are going to splinter these things inside their mouths? You think not strong enough jaws? I don't really know.
The school system, it's fucked.
Yeah, basically. Oh, it's a mess. Education's a mess.
Yeah.
I say as...
Yeah. Well, I guess we could sort of get into the section that it's my favorite part of the show. It really allows me to get into the mindset of who I'm talking to. And, I mean, I think you're about as big a nerd as I am. I mean, just going back from what we've, like, spoke about. I remember, like, last year, me and you were both geeking out about Mysterio and shit like that.
Oh, God, yeah, I know. And I'm still geeking out at Mysterio. Mysterio is awesome. I love how they...
Yeah.
Anyway,
this section is... if you had a chance to create anything you wanted, no strings attached, no boundaries, nothing, what do you want to do? Like, do you want to direct a movie? Is there a comic character you'd want to do a run on? Is there a manga you'd want to readapt or something like that? Just let your heart's content fill this last section.
So, just to clarify with the parameters of this question, are we talking about like any project period, or are we talking about taking on a pre-existing concept and adapting it in some format?
Either or.
Okay. So I have a different answer for each. Dream project, we're going for an entire original 6-part movie series.
Oof.
One that hopefully would be good. Or a Netflix series, one of the two. But something that's expansive and allows for room, but also fast-paced writing. Because one issue I have with a lot of TV is how they drag out episodes, and you're like, okay, why are you dragging this idea out? This is a hour-long idea, and you're dragging it out for 7 episodes. If I were writing it, it'd be every episode would have its own contained narrative that adds to the collective whole, and every conversation feels like you've done something. Of course, I'd have to write the whole script for the first season in one go, but and again, that would be assuming I have the time, budget, and all that stuff to do it. So again, parameters, concept, In terms of adaptation, though, a dream project would be to adapt something like, say, in terms of dream projects, probably an adaptation of Evangelion or something like that. but I don't think I'd be qualified enough to do that. That'd be a dream project because Evangelion's my favorite anime ever by a mile. But I feel like that would be such a nightmare to produce. Because you'd have to deal with young actors who are like 13, 14 years old, maybe 16 if they look really young. I know The Witcher cast Ciri as an 18-year-old, but she looks like she's like much younger. But you'd have to cast really young actors. It would be a nightmare to get past censors and and all those crazy, not crazy, that's the wrong word. All those very intense, radical right-wing groups, the watchdog groups like 1 Million Moms and all those guys.
Oh God!
I would be getting letters, so many letters. Did you see the newest thing about like Owl House? I think it's called the Disney cartoon.
My friend Charlie Feldman worked on that.
Oh really? Oh hell yeah! It's so good. But no, but so he's doing a good job clearly. But like 1 Million Moms is this right-wing conservative group that was saying that Owl House is a pathway to Satan. It's corrupting the youth. And all this nonsense. And they got like 16,000 people to sign like a petition, which of course did as much as any other petition. Absolutely nothing. But it's annoying to read is what it is. And plus the problem is Evangelion isn't as well known a property as, say, like Dragon Ball Z or the Marvel comics. So it probably wouldn't do much better than Alita financially. Mm-hmm. Even though I like Alita.
I like Alita as well.
And that's at best. And that's at best it would do that well. It would probably do worse because Alita had James Cameron's name attached to it.
Was that what sold it, though? Like,
that's what sold it to studios.
The studios I get, but like, I don't know. I feel like the modern movie audience doesn't really care about who's directing a thing now. They care about concept and like how it's marketed.
Well, I agree with you there. Concept is most important, and concept is what sold it overseas, especially. But I would argue that James Cameron's name still has a lot of influence.
Well, I mean, we'll see when Avatar 2 finally hits theaters.
That would be the real test of it, I think, honestly. If Avatar 2 fails, which I don't think it will fail, but I think it will not be the highest grossing film of all time
it won't
either.
Be. No.
No, by no means. It's impossible. I have zero hope of that.
I'm hoping it's like a T2 situation where it's better than the first one, and like, even if it doesn't make as much money, it's just a better narrative kind of thing.
James Cameron's good at making sequels. His sequels tend to be really good. Aliens, Terminator 2, they're all solid movies.
Two of my favorites.
I love them so much. They're such good movies. I love, like, Aliens especially is probably one of my all-time favorite movies. That's like up there.
Yeah, definitely.
No, it's superb. But no, those are my two dream projects.
I'd be interested in seeing any of those. And I mean, like with the 1 Million Moms thing, I just refer to that group as like the group of Karens.
Oh,
they are all Karens, and like I've even imagined like what it would be like if they saw adaptations of my work, or like if they saw adaptations of my friends' work. It'd be like, "You shut this down. This is not what we want on our entertainment." Like, fucking. I mean, they're probably the reason the whole Love Victor thing moved to Hulu. If I'm honest.
I think Disney was more paranoid than that, but because Disney doesn't listen to these guys, they've been annoying them for years, and they've just like, okay, sure, whatever.
I mean,
Karen.
they have been ignoring them, but those guys are their main audience.
No, they're a primary audience, certainly. They even got angry at Burger King for using the D word.
What, dick?
Damn. Damn. Not even dick. You went too far. No, damn.
I'm trying to think like how would you
it wasn't even that extreme.
Dick in Burger King. I mean, maybe if you're describing what it tastes like, but.
Well, I mean, what do you think they put in the burgers?
Fair enough. I thought it was old people, to be honest.
Oh yeah, old people's dicks.
This is. Were you expecting this when I invited you on this show?
I expect nothing at this point, and I always get something out of
it. That's really great, dude. I think that's more or less leading us to wrap up now, because I know you've got places to be. You've got a meeting with Steven Spielberg.
Oh yeah.
After this,
Oh yeah, I have it on speed dial. Just calling me before. I said, "Hey, hang on, Steven. Hold on a second.
Yeah.
Let's
Uh,
got something to do first,
can you
man."
tell him about if there's any project, if there's any like progress on Ready Player 2 or something like that, or whatever the hell they're gonna call it?
Oh, good luck with that one.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think
That's
another
not gonna
movie of
happen.
that's coming out. I know the book is coming out, but I doubt there'll be another movie.
I mean, it could be, but Ernest Cline, what a like his thing. I went to bat for the guy once. Like it was like at first I was like, oh yeah, he's talented, he's got some stuff, and then you actually reread Ready Player One, you realize, oh, once the luster of there being a book that references tons of nerdy stuff, once that is like, oh yeah, okay, it's no longer a novelty. You really look at the work and you're like, wow, this is really poorly written.
It's one of those cases where I prefer the movie over the book.
Oh yeah, completely. They did a great job adapting it because they adapted it and didn't translate it essentially.
Yeah,
That's why sometimes not being faithful to a work is a good thing. I think.
yeah.
Anyway.
The only time I've disagreed with that is, and I don't know how you feel about this. Maybe you've seen my video about it, but with The Shining, yeah, I don't like.
Yeah, The Shining is an
I
interesting.
don't like
case.
how that was adapted at all.
Really, not a fan. I get that though. I don't agree, but I get that. Like that's one where I think I really love the film, but if you're a fan of the book, it is a slap in the face.
It's mostly just Kubrick's attitude towards it that kind of turned me off, like the shit he was doing to Shelley Duvall on set, and I'm like, you didn't have to do this because the story did not call for it.
Well, here's the thing about Kubrick that people always forget. He was an asshole.
I've never forgotten that. He's a fucking dick.
No, he's brilliant. Oh, he was a brilliant director, but he was terrible to everyone. And Shelley Duvall's the worst of it. Like, very obviously, that's the worst example of his behavior. But in every one of his films, he was terrible to everyone. Not to everyone, but to enough. I think the only person who didn't have a bad word to say about Kubrick who worked with him was the kid who plays Danny in The Shining.
Yeah, and then
And that's really about it.
then Ewan McGregor went and replaced him. I'm surprised they didn't get him to come back, to be honest. I mean, he has a
I can
he has
see
a
why.
cameo in Doctor Sleep, doesn't he? I think so, though.
I think so. I've double checked to make sure, but I mean, I get it because Ewan McGregor is a very talented actor. He's very well known. Because even if concepts sell movies, actors are still contributing factors.
He's one of
I know
our
people-
finest exports. Ewan McGregor, him, David Tennant, James McAvoy. You guys are welcome.
No, I appreciate it. Those are great. They're great. Don't worry, we'll give you someone valuable. Do you want Tom Cruise?
I respect Tom Cruise as a movie star. I love how committed he is. I want him to play Norman Osborn, so he builds an actual glider. But
Oh, he would do that. Oh
but
my God.
he's a crazy person.
He would do that. Oh God, he's out of his mind. Scientology, if you ever dig into that, it's a rabbit hole.
I've tried
of
and I still don't understand
madness.
it.
No one
I kind of
understands
don't.
it. Scientologists
I
don't
don't
understand
want
it.
to understand it.
I have done enough research to because I like reading about different beliefs and ideas. Scientology is a you can tell it's was made up as he went along. As L. Ron Hubbard made it up as he went along. You can tell.
much.
He just adds to whatever he built previously and just goes on from there. Because he was a sci-fi writer before getting rich off of a religion.
But
And he wasn't a bad sci-fi writer either, is the thing.
that's good. Well,
He wasn't a good one, but he wasn't bad.
yeah. Well, I think roasting Tom Cruise is where we're gonna wrap it up there. And thanks
Agreed.
thanks so much for coming on this show. You're welcome back anytime.
No, my pleasure. It'd be a joy. My pleasure.
I look forward to interacting with you more on Twitter as we geek out over certain shit. I don't know.
You know where to find
I'm
me.
pretty sure around April, May time, we'll finally get a casting announcement for who the next Spider-Man villain is going to be. I'm hoping it's Kraven the Hunter.
I think you have a good chance of that happening. I'm also gonna hold out hope for a Doc Ock at some point, but
I've heard Doc Ock is going to be making an appearance, and I really want Mark Hamill to play him.
that'd be really fun. Mark Hamill would be really good. I would love that. But also, I was gonna say someone else, but Mark Hamill's a better choice than what I was gonna think.
Well, have you heard my choice for Kraven the Hunter?
Did you say? Was it you who said? Crud. Either Oh, No Country for Old Men.
No, I think
Skyfall.
Javier Bardem's too obvious a choice. My choice was Nick Cage.
Yeah.
No, honestly, like look at like Mandy and stuff like that. He could be an intense Kraven the Hunter.
You're not wrong. But I would rather see Nick Cage, honestly.
I mean, they get A-list actors for these Spider-Man villains now. Keaton, Gyllenhaal. You need someone huge.
No, I want Nick Cage to play in terms of aside from Ghost Rider, and aside from Spider-Man Noir, what I want to see Nick Cage play would be someone like Jackal.
That would fit. Would fit.
Yeah, like a villain who's just loathed by everyone. No one likes him, but he's just so insane. You just kind of like, yeah, sure, let's do it.
Nick Cage is good old Miles Warren. Let's get that to happen in the Spider-Verse. I'd rather watch it than Jared Leto as Morbius.
Yeah.
But once again, thanks so much for coming back on the show, dude. Anything you want to plug?
No problem,
before
man.
We sign off?
Yes, I would like to plug my Twitter. If you want to follow me there, you'll be able to read and access more of my writing there. It's at are you gonna link it in the description of
course,
the video?
Yeah, I always do that.
Cool. Awesome. Okay, cool. So just click on that thing down there and you'll be good to go.
And as always, you guys can follow me at NolanDean27, and you can check out more videos on this channel, Nolan Dean. Look forward to the massive James Bond analysis that I've been planning for a while now. It's like my longest video script yet. I don't know if I'm going to wear a suit in it. I just might. We'll see, though. But once again, thank you guys so much for joining the Creator's Conscience, and if you like this video, hit the subscribe button, and I'll see you guys next time. See you later, guys. Bye.
Okay, I'm still recording. Let me stop.